Woo!
Woo!
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Force for Growth podcast. I'm Ricardo.
I'm Courtney. Welcome. Welcome back, it feels like. But yeah, I'm excited to be here, Ricardo. We've got some good stuff to talk about.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. What's
Yes.
coming up today?
Well, today we are discussing how conflicts, hurdles, obstacles make us stronger.
Ooh,
And coming up later this month, we have some good topics that will build onto that
all
you're
right,
going to want to tune into as well.
let's get going.
Yes.
All right, first big announcement, Courtney. We're going seasonal. So we're going to wrap up season one. This has been a year and a half season in the making, but we're going to go ahead and wrap up season one in 5 episodes. So make sure you tune in. So, what
Yes.
do we have coming up in the next 5 episodes?
We have coming up conflict and uncertainty. We have how to deal with conflicts. So we're talking talk resources and actual practical things, right? And much, much more. So you're going to want
Yeah,
to listen to them all.
I'm ready. I'm
I am too.
excited.
Yes. So, okay. I guess I'll start. Well, the cat's out of the bag. So a lot of this is inspired by what I'm going to talk about is obviously like very recent growth and hurdles and setbacks. But yeah, I'm no longer a resident of Texas right now, and I'm on a adventure until I figure it out. But this is all part of me actually addressing and doing what I need to do to get stronger.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, conflict, two types of conflict. Let's go ahead and get this ball rolling.
Okay.
There's internal conflict and external conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So, internal conflict is where at
Our head.
in our mind.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Like, for example, struggling to make a decision or overcoming a feeling that we have about something when nothing is going on out here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're sitting here chilling, having a conversation, and we're talking about something that's going out there in the world. And that's where this internal conflict starts to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the external conflict.
Yes. The world
Oh,
around us and
the
how we
word.
respond.
Yeah, we nothing we could do about that conflict.
No,
Not one thing.
no.
But it feels like we can, but we still react to it. So we have two types of conflict, that internal and that external conflict. And
Mm-hmm.
also a lot of what comes into here is the words that we use, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's one of the most important things that you can control that will help with both internal and external conflict.
Correct. So let's look at the words that we have up here.
Okay.
For example, tell me, Courtney, speak to me.
Let's
The
see.
word conflict, just that. When you think about conflict, what does that stir up in you?
It gives an uneasy feeling off the bat, and there I've had to pay attention to that because certain things I call conflict aren't. Or what do I mean by that? It's in you already know, or kind of whenever your head and your heart are disagreeing, or you're having to justify a lot of stuff to yourself, that conflict inside of you. But I've also switched that to calling it feedback,
Ooh,
and it's a really empowering flip because it reminds me the power's in my hand.
correct. That's really important to remember and remind each other that the power is within us, right?
Hmm.
To change that. So that word conflict stirs up those feelings. What about the word obstacle?
Obstacle. I think of an obstacle course. That one's not really intimidating. That one
Oh,
kind of reminds me it's just something you need to get over this bump or this hurdle or this mountain and then go on to the next one, like
right.
an obstacle course. Because that's what life is, right?
Correct. And it's essentially the same word. We can
Yeah.
interchange those. And speaking of obstacle courses, what about a hurdle?
Yeah. What do you think about hurdle?
Hurdle seems just like, all right, let's just jump over this hurdle.
Hmm.
Hashtag hump over your hurdle.
All right.
All right. Hump day.
Yes.
Hashtag hump over your hump hurdle.
Which, if you're wondering why we're referencing hump day, that is one of my favorite flips because
It is.
and it doesn't have to be Wednesday. Any day can be hump day. Like, what is your biggest hurdle? What is that biggest hump that you are putting off and not addressing? Or what on your to do list can you get done that makes everything else easier? So hashtag hump over your hurdle.
Yep. And then finally, a setback.
Setback.
Where, like on the scale, when you use the word conflict and the word setback, where does it fall on the scale? For me, setback is a lot less intense, significantly less intense, actually. If I think about it as a setback, I'm like, okay, we're just having a setback. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we're done. That doesn't mean that we're not moving forward. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means that it's a setback.
Setback. Yeah. You didn't fail. You just have a few more steps.
Correct.
That's it.
And that's it.
Hmm.
All right. So let's continue here.
Okay.
Conflict is the strongest one, setback is the more mild one. But
Hmm.
let's apply these to some personal examples. Give me a personal example, Courtney, of a conflict, obstacle, hurdle, or a setback.
Okay. Well, I'll pick a setback. So, but this one I'm going to talk about it in an empowering sense, but I switched jobs and I could see the signs that I wasn't happy in this certain type position. I could see this, and so I did have to stop and I had a setback, but I was able to pivot and find something that was what much better of a fit and just makes me a lot happier and feels better and feels natural, you name it. It's still work, so I also want to remind people as you're looking for solutions, the rainbows and sunshine doesn't always exist clearly. You're still going to have to do the work, whatever that setback is. However, it can set you in a better spot. It can pivot you into a better path that you're meant for.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one.
That.
So,
What about
for
you?
that, are you stronger now?
Yes.
Are you
Yes.
stronger from the setback?
Very. More than I thought. Way more than I thought
Oh,
already. I know I have a long journey to go with it, but I mean, yeah, it's already interesting looking back at the last almost month and seeing how much stronger I've gotten at certain things and just how also a lot of skills I used to panic that I needed, I don't. That was just kind of a lie in my head or an expectation I was setting up in my head.
that's so good. That's so good. So, for me, like one of the biggest conflicts that I had was when I moved to the DFW area from East Texas. And it was a lot of back and forth. Do I go? Do I stay? This is my home. This is where my family and my friends are. Do I go somewhere else where I literally only know one or two people? What do I do?
Yeah.
So for me, that wasn't just a setback. That was actually a conflict because
Mm,
there was a lot in here. Nothing has happened out here. Nothing was happening in the real world. This was all within me. And I was forced to make a choice. Guess what happens when there's conflict? Sometimes you get to make a choice. Sometimes you're forced to make a
hmm.
choice.
Yeah.
And I was forced to make a choice because I ran out of money. So I couldn't pay my bills
Love
anymore.
honesty. Yes.
Right. So I was like, well, I need to move so I could get a better, so I could get a job so I could pay bills,
Hmm.
and so that kind of just forced the hand.
Hmm.
And that's a reoccurring theme here. And we're gonna keep reminding you of this. Either you make a choice willingly or you're gonna be forced to make a choice.
Yeah. I
It's
think that's
always going to happen no matter what.
the question. You looking back now on if you were to talk to Ricardo 20 years ago, what would you have told him knowing what you know now?
So if I look back at Ricardo, he's in the past. So if I look back at him like, hey man, it's okay. It'll be all right. It'll
Yeah.
be okay. It's going to work out. I know there's some internal conflict because your roots are there, but looking back at it now, and I can tell you for sure that we're better off for it.
Yeah, that's actually something I did make a note on. Beautiful things lie on the other side. We tend to panic all the bad things that could happen, right?
Correct.
But we do not give the headspace to what could go right. And, you worry, worry, worry about this decision, putting it off, procrastinating it, which just makes the conflict stronger, right? Or whatever word you're using, hurdle, setback, it just intensifies until you make that decision. But we forget the greatness that also will come with making a jump, you know?
Yeah. And mind you, once that conflict was resolved for me, this is interesting now that I'm thinking about the words of this topic. Once this conflict was resolved within me to make the move, I ran into some hurdles
Yeah.
and I had to clear those hurdles.
Yeah.
There were no setbacks because nothing stopped me. There were just hurdles that didn't push my timeline back or anything because things still had to get done. But there were some hurdles that came up and I ended up being stronger for it. I ended up being a better person. I ended up being a more resourceful person afterwards.
Hmm. Do you think all of these words fit into it's a muscle? Like, do you think it's a muscle? The more you do this or the more you jump, like, do you make decisions quicker now or do you overanalyze them more?
It depends, actually. That's an interesting question because it really does depend. And I think it depends on the magnitude. If it's like a little thing, I can make a quick decision. Like, okay, Courtney, let's change the day that we record. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. No problem. Let's
Hmm.
go for it. Let's change the time. All right. No problem. There's very low consequence there if we get it wrong,
Right.
right? But then there's also big decisions that there might be some hesitation there because there's the bigger consequence and the bigger um,
Risk.
potential risk. Yeah, there's risk and reward, right?
Hmm.
And so this is a good lead into the next one. Risk
Yeah.
reward, making a decision, Courtney. Chat me up for another example for you.
Okay. So, moving. Yeah. So it was, I literally decided a week before I did it, you guys. Like that still is crazy to me because I am the type that has been working on overanalyzing for a long time, right? So that's kind of just the anxiety I put into things and make up in my head. Let's call it what it is, right? The anxiety I make up in my head. But whenever the decision hit me, it was like there was no other option. No other option. I almost felt like the decision made it for itself. But with that said, everything fell into place and everything, but it all came down to the trust in myself with making the decision. And that's where I have lacked trust in myself in making decisions and put off things for years that needed to be decided then, right now, and even if it's not the right fit, if I just run at it, charge at it, I'll find out quicker, right? And I don't want to spend another few years overanalyzing. So let's do it. you know,
So are you a better person now?
I think I am. Yeah. I I can't say it's only, been a week. Okay. But like, yeah, I think it's made a lot of big change within myself because a month ago I would tell you I would never just hop and change states in a week and get my ass up here. Like I just wouldn't have thought it was something I would do, but now I don't know, I see so much value in it and I think that drastic shock to my system and my brain and my life, it's already so rewarding. Granted,
That's
it's not
funny.
going to be a walk in the park every day, I'm still going to have changes and hurdles and setbacks and little things, but it taught me a lot about myself and it gave me the faith and trust that next time, even if it's not the forever solution, I at least need to jump and try right now.
And so was this an internal or external conflict? Or both?
Both. Both.
Mm,
Yes, it was both. I don't know how to sum that up quickly, but yeah, there was a lot I wasn't hearing in myself and messages to myself that just I was too busy. I had too many emotions going on. I was focusing on things that shouldn't have been my priorities. And I was missing all that feedback internally. And, I was getting a lot of feedback externally that just something different, right?
that's really good. You have to take a look at that feedback when you're in conflict mode.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to look at it. And just once you resolve that conflict, there's a pattern here that I'm already seeing from our examples. We might run into some hurdles. We might run into some obstacles. We may run into some setbacks
Hmm.
because that conflict is resolved and we decide to do something or not do something.
Yeah.
So it's like a little chain. But
Hmm.
when we go through this cycle of conflict, obstacles, hurdles, setbacks, we're stronger at the end of it.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
stronger.
And it's not as scary as like there are going to be scary shifts in your life you're going to have to take, but it's not as scary as you think it is. And what I mean by that is, you've built it up in your head and your brain's job's not to make you happy. Your brain actually has two jobs. It's will it kill me to keep you safe, keep you certain. We need that human need for certainty, right? And does it fit a pattern I'd seen before? So your brain will delete, distort, generalize things that maybe aren't related, but it'll relate it to a traumatic thing that happened in your past, or it'll relate it to this. And so a lot of that fear that we build up, it's literally just this fake bubble in front of us, this fake thing that we built this
Correct.
wall. And if you could just get the courage to get over that wall, through a wall, break through it, drive through it, hammer it down, whatever, but peek at what's on the other side. I promise you, on the other side, looking back, it's not as terrifying as you build it up in your head.
It's not. It's not. I got another example that came to me here.
Yes.
So we're my 8-year-old son, Sebastian, we're teaching him how to ride a bike. We kind of put it off for a while. He had a bike and we didn't really think much of it, right?
Hmm.
and now he wants to ride his bike to school. So we're in the process of teaching him how to ride his bike, and we're having some setbacks. There's no conflict,
Mm.
but we are having some setbacks. There's that fear of going fast. And if you know much about bike riding, gravity doesn't quite work that way. You got to go pretty fast if you want gravity to not take effect here, right? You got to
You got to
find that
keep moving
balance.
to stay
You
balanced.
got to
Oh,
keep moving,
metaphor.
right? And so he's kind of having a little bit of uh obstacle staying going faster, right? Because it's
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I'm going too fast. I need to slow down. No, bro, you got to keep going fast, because if you don't go fast, you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
And I guess when you're eight, it doesn't make sense. Why
Mm.
would going faster keep me from falling? So we've had some setbacks, but it happens, right? We got to
Hmm.
get past these obstacles. We got to get past these setbacks, and you got to crank up the speed and go fast.
You bring up a genius point. So thank you, Sebastian. Okay. Sometimes things do get going, and it just happens a lot faster than you were planning on it. And sometimes we get freaked out and we pull back right when we just get started, right? So as adults, I mean, I can think of so many times where it, you know, got going really good and I was like, "Oh no, maybe I'm not ready for this," and I sabotage it. So that that's a big one to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll sum that up. Are the setbacks that we create as big as we make them out to be?
Mm, probably not. Sometimes yes, but probably not.
Most likely, no.
Yeah.
We make them into these big monsters,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're not really that big. It's like, oh, you know the video that have you seen the video of the crying baby in the shallow pool? Like he's
Yeah.
holding on to a string, like a rope or something, and he's like crying bloody murder. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, oh, and then the mom just comes up and then she's like, stand up, and he's like, oh,
He
okay.
was deeper in the water hanging onto the pole panicking than he was when he actually stood up.
Correct. That's a really good one. But it's a good reminder that, all of these challenges, all of these obstacles, all of these conflicts, these are lessons that
Hmm.
can be applied for future situations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like if you're the little kid in the pool, it's like, oh, I just learned that I made this into a bigger thing than I meant it to, than it
Hmm.
is. How can I
Hmm.
apply this to another situation?
Yeah.
So how can you apply what you've learned through these conflicts to other situations?
Just the trust in myself to go for it. I'm trying to think of another example because I've said that a lot, but that's a big one for me. It's taken the fear out of it, not completely. I mean, I'm human, but it just has showed me that if I just go for it, I will be rewarded for it one way or the other. And it might not happen the way that you're planning. It might not happen the way you're going after it.
Typically, it
But
doesn't.
yeah, but you will be rewarded in some way. And you just got to be open to that and almost expect it, and let that be your pep talk going into things and then just deciding quicker. Come on. Like we got to stop wasting years trying to make a decision. I'd say if you're waiting that long to make a decision, there's your decision.
Yeah, you gotta do something. You gotta get off that horse,
Hmm.
right? You gotta keep moving, and you gotta make that decision. For
Yeah.
me, I think every time that I do something, there's a bigger lesson. We're always learning. What's the saying? We're always learning and churning,
Hmm.
right? We're
Yeah.
always learning and churning. That means we're always moving, and we're always moving forward, and we're always learning, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And it's nonstop. At the end of the day, it's just nonstop. We're always learning.
Hmm.
And we have to figure out how to get better at applying what we've learned in other lessons.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
think about 2 plus 2. What's 2 plus 2?
Or yeah.
Correct. And if you're adding a tip, you're adding 2 plus 2. You're
Yeah.
adding it here. If you're calculating something else, you're adding it. So you're taking that lesson and applying it in different areas, whether it's tip, adding a page, um, adding how many podcast episodes we've done.
Yeah.
You were doing it's the same thing. It's that same math, that same simple math. 1 plus 2, 1 plus 3, 1 plus 4.
Hmm.
Correct. And we're
Yeah.
applying it in different areas in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is always 5 for 1 plus 4, no matter what.
Yeah.
If we got one episode now and we record 4 more, how many are we going to have?
I'm gonna have five.
If you have $1 and I give you 4, how many are you going to have?
Five.
If you have one job and you at 4, how many are you going to have?
Way too many at five.
But still 5. All right. I'm
Yeah.
just saying it's that
Yeah.
same concept, and we're applying it in two and totally different areas that have nothing to do with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing that we need to do with these lessons.
Yeah.
We need
What
to
is
apply them.
a obstacle or hurdle you're looking at now that you're in decision mode on?
Oh man, um, a big rebrand. I'm going through. We're contemplating a big rebrand for everything that we do, putting out some ads because we're getting ready to do a new training, and it's like, oh, right. Do I
Mm-hmm.
really want to put myself out there like that? Yes, I do, because
Yeah.
we have to. Like it just
Yeah.
has to get done. We don't want our goal is not to be the best kept secret out there.
Right.
Like we don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so the only way to grow the brand and to expand the brand is to put ourselves out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
We're either growing or we're dying.
correct. And to that standpoint, there's a comfort when we're putting our content out there to our Facebook friends
Mm-hmm.
versus putting our content out there to total strangers that don't know us.
Yeah.
And there's that conflict, there's that hurdle, like, uh, why does it matter when someone that we don't even know thinks about us?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite concepts is okay, so there's your business, God's business, and their business. Okay. So your business is what you can control. Your business is what you make of it, how you translate it to yourself, the words you use, the language, because spelling, keep in mind, the words you explain things to yourself with is so important because you're casting a spell of energy. Like you got to watch your words and watch your verbiage, right? But so you can control what you can control. And then there's the other people, right? External conflict. You can't control what they're doing, right?
None.
You might have a purpose or a lesson or something or attempt to give them value or share a part of your life with them, but at the end of the day, you cannot change another person. You can't. But then there's this other category that, maybe we call it fate, maybe we call it God, maybe we call it meant to be, whatever. But for better or worse, we get sent things that we cannot control and we just have to figure it out from there and grow from there. And so I think looking at it from the three categories, one, it takes a weight off you. You don't have to worry about God's business. You don't have to worry about their business. You got to get your business right, right?
Mm.
And keep that straight. So,
That's a good way to just resolve that conflict, to think about that,
mhm,
because it's always that conflict, that inner conflict,
yeah.
that outer conflict. You got to get that resolved. But that's a big one for me because it's intimidating to put yourself out there, to have your face out there on a Facebook ad, on a LinkedIn ad, on a YouTube ad. Like it's like, oh man,
It jolts you.
it,
Yeah.
it it does. Now I see why so many people hesitate to putting their content out there, because you're putting yourself out there in a vulnerable space and you're showing that belly. But
Mhm.
you got to work through that conflict, right? At the end of the day, if we want the result, we got to do the work.
And one big thing you've taught me, and I've really taken to heart in the last few years, but especially in the recent, is just that you still have value. It does not have to be perfect to put it out there. You don't need to make it shiny and pretty for it to still have value. So just
Correct.
shut up and do it. Like, I mean that with love.
STFU and do it.
Yeah. Right.
Right? Give me your final thought, Courtney.
Oh, my final thought is just you're a lot closer than you think. You're so much closer than you think, but literally giving into this wall of whatever you're making or this wall you're putting in between a decision or, not trusting yourself to take the next step and just see, you don't have to have the whole staircase. You literally just need the next step.
Correct.
And when you look at it in bite-sized chunks, tiny habits, when you look at it, make the monster into a little thing, a little cute critter, whatever. And that sounds cheesy, but I'm serious. Like, stop making things into this terrifying thing and causing your body terror, internal conflict, which results in external conflict. Just you're a lot closer than you think. Sit quiet with yourself. You know a lot more than you do if you can shut your brain up and listen. If you give yourself the time to hear it, the space to hear it, and I think you'll get there a lot quicker.
I agree. My final thought is you have to work through that conflict. It would be so nice to say, okay, we can wave a magic wand and you're never going to have conflict again. But then we won't never have feedback.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. We don't want that. We're human beings.
Yeah.
We have feelings. We're
Mhm.
human beings that feel.
Yeah.
So to say that we want to eliminate every single conflict, obstacle, hurdle, and setback in our life is unreasonable.
Not
And
sustainable.
how much fun would life be without that? So
It wouldn't.
look into the gift of that conflict. Look to see what's good about it. I challenge you to take a look at all your previous conflicts and say, hey, what did I learn from that? And then where can I apply that in my life right now, today,
Yeah.
and take that lesson?
That's a good
Mm,
that's a great challenge. Yeah.
so good. What do we got coming up next week, Courtney?
Let's see. Oh, well, next week we have conflict and uncertainty, which I'm
Ooh,
really excited about that one because uncertainty, granted, we have a need for certainty and safety, but what do we also have? A need for
uncertain,
variety and uncertainty,
uncertainty. Yeah,
right? And then coming up later, we have how to deal with it and actual things to help pivot. We don't want to just sit here and talk fluff and sound good. We want you to actually take, even if it's just one point out of, take what works for you, leave what doesn't. So we actually want to give that to you. So we're going to go over how to be resourceful in this realm.
correct. And we're going to go into detail about that one.
Yes.
Looking forward to the next few episodes. We're going to wrap up season 1, take a short break, and then come back for an even better season 2.
Yes.
So that's
I'm
going to be a
excited.
lot of fun. Remember to follow and like us, subscribe to the podcast. We're going to be dropping some bonus episodes. Go to forceforgrowth.com. We're on all of your favorite podcasting platforms.
Hmm.
And as always, remember to be a force for good
A force for growth
and
and
a
a force.
force.
Yes. Oh, I'm
Oh,
excited to be back.
you are. Good to see you. All right, guys. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
Yes. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.